Hey everybody, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley, and today I am showing up to do two videos. The first being what is genocide, or is this genocide, sorry, where we will explore what genocide is, and that is to defend the bold claim that I made in the previous video, what's it gonna take? This isn't a series, but if you are watching them, in this order, how I'm doing them. I just want to lay the groundwork for what genocide is, and then the next video we're going to talk about ways to counter that and kind of up the frequency a little bit and not keep us down in this holy fuck kind of energy. And apologies in advance, I'm sharing this small space with 3 kittens. So if we are interrupted, yes, they are kittens. Okay, so is this genocide? I did state that we are experiencing genocide in the last video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out if you feel like it, if you feel compelled. But so I just want to talk about the stages of genocide, and I did mention in the previous video that I studied genocide within my undergrad and graduate work, and so I just want to share this information with you. Again, it fascinates me how systems of control can keep people at each other and have people blindly contributing and participating in genocide. Sorry, it's really hot here in Arizona. I'm not sorry because I'm sweating, but it's very muggy right now. So anyway, Gregory Stanton is the president of the organization Genocide Watch, and he came up with 8 stages of genocide, but there are 10 stages that we're going to talk about. And he did this work really specifically around the Rwandan genocide that happened from April of 1994 to, I believe, June or July of 1994. So yeah, we're going to talk about what these stages are, and it's important to note quickly that while I'm listing these from a numerical order, right, 1 to 10, at any given time when this is going on, these don't have to be linear steps, right? So it doesn't have to be, you know, a checkbox of, oh, we did this. All of these things can be happening at the same time, and especially I want to speak to the United States and what we're experiencing here. We have multiple layers of divide, right? That dichotomy I spoke to in the previous video. And I just want to share what these are, explain what they are, and then give an example of what we're experiencing now. I will be talking about COVID. I'm not trying to point fingers to anybody. I just want you all to be aware of what this looks like and what we're experiencing, and call it what it is, and have an understanding of what it is that we're experiencing and participating and being a part of or being victims of. Now it might be kind of weird that I'm explaining this, as you know, lots of black and brown folks are already familiar with these things because they're ancestors and themselves have been experiencing this since colonization for, you know, hundreds of years. But again, I do know that a particularly large amount of my audience is white folks, and so for folks who have never experienced these things, because of the privilege you hold due to systems, I want to lay it out for you, and maybe my hope is that there's a light bulb for you of how you're participating. And I challenge you, this is an aspect of shadow work, especially generational and ancestral shadow work for white folks, to have an understanding of this and to not participate blindly in this once you do know, right? And there's no hard feelings, you know, once you know better, you do better, and you can't go backwards. So, you know, give yourself grace and forgiveness, or, you know, just allow yourself to move forward with new information and new knowledge. There's no need to beat yourself up, because then again we get stuck in that white fragility, and it's about our feelings versus, you know, how we're actually participating in an active genocide on various levels. And again, here in the United States we have economics, social standing, race, cultural, religious, lots of different aspects. And that's how the system was created. That's how the hierarchies want it to be, because that keeps us divided and against each other instead of coming together for unity, which the next video will look into. So let me get on with this. I don't want this to be too long. I really want to focus on solutions and ways that we can counter this. Okay, so the first stage or step, again, it's not linear, is classification. So people are divided into us versus them. Now, you already know, if you watch any of the news, or even if, you know, whatever social media platform you're on, you already know that you participate in certain in-groups and out-groups, and, you know, varying on your level of awareness, that can look like just gossip or, oh my god, did you see this? All of that is participating in a classification and a divide. And now on a macro or larger scale, we see right now, we're seeing unmasked versus masked, vaccinated versus unvaccinated. All of these things are put into order because they just have to introduce, and they being the powers that be, right? I'm not going to specify that anymore, but just the powers that be, they give us these little seeds, and then we do all the work for them by keeping ourselves divided and at each other. So classification, us versus them. Symbolization, oh my god, symbolization, that's not a word. Symbolism. I can read. All right, so when combined with hatred, symbols forced upon the them group. So, again, speaking to the pandemic, this looks like signs on the door, you know, from that look like the times of segregation in this country. Or vaccinated folks don't have to be masked. I'm just giving an example. This isn't, I'm just giving an example that we're all witnessing right now, right? And I want you to know also, with this pandemic, this is another layer of all those other things, right? Race, religion, ethnicity, your economics or social status, all of those things. The pandemic is kind of a larger umbrella within that, and so it's got people even more at terms. And we've heard people talking about civil war, and I just want you to know this is how they implement those things and keep us going at each other, instead of us all coming together and saying, no, 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 we're not going to be pawns to your system, which is, you know, the hope, right? Eventually we'll get there, hopefully. So lots of different symbols, the signs on the door, what other symbols? Wow, I'm really drawing a blank right now. Yeah, I don't know. Lots of symbols. So we'll just move on. You guys know what symbolism is. And I want to do a lot more deeper work in symbolism on another video. So yeah. Discrimination. Number 3 is discrimination. Law or cultural power excluding groups from full civil and human rights. So that's what I'm speaking to about black and brown folks in this country already having an overstanding of what that looks like for them. And in regards to what we're seeing at a scale right now, we are, again, seeing that discrimination about different masked, unmasked, vaccinated, unvaccinated. All of those things are really doing the work for them, because we're discriminating amongst each other. I mean, I know I've seen things on social media where people are just going at each other about whatever side you're on. You know, either side is going at the other side about these things. And again, we're doing the work for them, which is why I'm putting this out there. This is all stages of genocide that we're participating in, whether we mean to or not. Number 4, dehumanization. One or more groups denies the humanity of another group. Members are equated with animals, vermin, insects, or very importantly, diseases. So that speaks for itself. The dehumanization, and speaking to a larger scale, not just about the pandemic right now, but we've seen dehumanization in pulp culture and in propaganda, especially with, in the past few years, how the Black Lives Matter movement has come up, and now the Native folks who are speaking out against their oppressors with the residential schools and the Catholic churches. All of those things were easily done and carried out because of the dehumanization of people that hold a certain status quo, right? Which is what we're talking about when we talk about privilege. It's not something that you need to get butthurt about. It's something that you really need to recognize is inherently built so that you are participating blindly and supporting the powers that be, and feeding capitalism in the system that ultimately is also oppressing you, okay? Number 5 is organization. Genocide is always organized. Special units are often trained and armed. And so we see this at varying degrees with mandated on, you know, flights in order to be able to fly right now. We're seeing that there could be task force going knocking on doors. So this is part of this genocide, is that there are organized units. And then of course the police force, and the Catholic churches, the religious aspects of our culture, society, I should say, it's not a culture, society, that have always been organized to carry out genocide. And that's how the colonizers have gotten so much power. And I'm going to speak to that in the next video, give a little brief history on that. So number 6 is polarization, and this is the separation and hate groups broadcast polarizing propaganda. So we see that on the news. Again, you know, I don't watch news, but I see enough that, you know, I'm understanding that the groups are very polarized. And I've spoken in one of my videos before about watching the adjectives that are used, because those adjectives, the words that describe things, are planted to get you to subconsciously align yourself with their propaganda and their organization of carrying out these things, right? That's how they keep us divided. All right. Polarization, separation of hate groups. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of that too with social media silencing the fact checkers, the false information. And now Instagram just put up another thing where you have to go into your settings. A default setting is that you won't even be able to see things. And so in order to counter that, you have to go into your own settings to let them know that you would like to still see those things. So that's a huge aspect of the polarization that I've been seeing and noticing. And again, all the other aspects up until this point of polarization also serve to that purpose, which is why it's not linear, but these things are all going together at all. Sorry, there's a cat ruining my... Anyway, all right. Preparation is the mass killing is planned. Victims are identified and separated because of their ethnic, religious, social identities, or in this case, with the pandemic, it's the medical aspect, right? How folks are choosing to care for themselves, regardless of what's being told to them or whatever. And then number 8 is the persecution, which is the expropriation of forced displacement. So that speaks to ghettos, concentration camps. Also that speaks to the residential schools that I've mentioned, having people removed and taken. We saw that in the Holocaust. It happened in Rwanda. It also happened in the Turkish-Armenian genocide. It's happened throughout empires, throughout history. This is a big part of it, forced displacement. And now I also want to speak to how the prison industrial complex in this country feeds into that as well, which is why this isn't linear, but this has been going on forever. And that is jails and prisons, also mental institutions. And now what we're seeing, I don't know if you've seen this, but I've seen that people are speaking about FEMA camps. I did see an ad on one of my social media accounts about how FEMA was hiring, and that was kind of a red flag to me. So just understand that now that's the mobilization and literal removal and execution of people. Number 9 is extermination. So it is the extermination to killers because they do not believe the victims to be fully human. And as we know, people in this country, well, hopefully we know, are not given human rights. Lots of people, I mean, even if you just look at homelessness, for instance, or black folks or indigenous folks, we know that full human rights are not granted. And that's by design. I mean, people want to talk about the Constitution, but the Constitution was written by white men. White women were not even involved in that Constitution. And when they spoke to all men created equal, I mean, let's think about it. They talked about how indigenous folks were savages, so they didn't even see them as men, right? They didn't even see them as human. And that's part of this genocide that's been carrying out forever and is now intensifying to include people who have not always been oppressed. And that's what I'm trying to wake you up to. And what I said in my last video also. If you don't think you're a target now, that doesn't mean you won't be. And that's why I'm trying to let you know and shed light that this is real. And then number 10, of course, denial. Which we see a lot right now with like social context and narcissism. A lot, well, I mean, I follow these things, so I don't know if people follow that. But I know that a lot of folks that I've talked to in my inner circles too have talked about how the narcissism and understanding narcissism and talking about that has come into more of a social setting. It's people are being more aware of that. However, what I want to talk about that with in the system is that we are in a completely intense narcissistic relationship with our government and with the powers that be, right? Because denial is that the perpetrators deny any and all crimes committed. They don't see it as anything they did wrong. They see it as, you know, they'll use religion or, you know, whatever moral ground that they have to work on. And morals and ethics are two different things, and we can do a whole different video on that. But, so so there's absolute denial. And a lot of that, what I'm speaking to in relational settings with narcissism, which is at a micro scale, right, is that being gaslit and being, and so if you don't know those terms, I highly encourage you, check it out. A lot of the generations that came before millennials, I can only speak to that because I am a millennial, had highly narcissistic tendencies. And that doesn't mean that they're bad people, but that just means that these things were filtered through society and people picked up on them, which is why I'm sharing this, because I don't want us to get there again, and we are already there. So if there's anything you can do to, you know, remove yourself from participating in genocide, and I'm not trying to spread fear, I'm not, we have to have knowledge. Knowledge is power, and that's, you know, the people power is a real thing. There are way more of us than there are of these folks that are doing these things. And so yeah, so those are the 10 steps. If you want to look further into it, you can just Google it. It's on Wikipedia. Gregory Stanton's written a couple books. I don't know if I have the hard copies anymore, but there are books about this. You can also look specifically into historical genocides. I mentioned a couple beyond the Holocaust, because, you know, we were indoctrinated into that. So I encourage you to look further into you know, different things that you haven't maybe heard of, and also just, this is part of coming into consciousness. This is part of doing shadow work, and this is part of awakening to what's really going on and removing yourself. A lot of people are talking about the matrix, and that can be seen as a very literal thing, and so this is part of awakening to your humanity, and looking for ways that we can come together and ways that we can stop participating in these things that are carrying out genocide, and also know that just because you're participating or helping to carry it out does not mean that you will not be a target later on. If you're not a part of that in-group to begin with, you're part of the out-group, and that's what I'm trying to make very clear to you. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and make the next video. And thank you so much for being here. If you would like any support or guidance to start doing this work, it's very deep work. You can email me at happyhealingessentials.com. Nope, that's it. That's a website. happyhealingessentials@gmail.com. I don't have a website right now, but yeah, just email me. We can set up a session. It's energy work, so yeah, this is free labor, but when I do work with folks one-on-one, there is a very intense energy exchange, and so that's actually what the next video is about. It's called Energy is Currency, and I highly recommend you check that out. It'll help elevate your soul a little bit from this very intense topic. Thank you!